Hello, how are you doing? Justin here yet again. In this lesson we're going to be checking out variations of a G7. So we're going to be looking at ways to play G7, G9, G11 and G13. Knowing that you can, if it says G7 in the music, you can substitute any of these other chords in there. Don't need to talk about this much more. Let's just go to a close-up and I'll show you some cool chords to play. Okay, here's our most common G7 chord here. It's an E shape, just like a regular E shape bar chord, a G chord, but we lift off our little finger and we get a G7. Just a little note here, a lot of people, jazz guys, play G7 like this. It's the same notes, but as I mentioned a couple of times already, in jazz you often play 3 notes here at the top. So this is just like 3rd fret, 4th fret, 3rd fret, and the root note there. Just enables you to do other little variations like that and get to some other chords, but generally I tend to play it like this, I must admit. So, variations on G7. So, we've got G7 there. Really nice one over here is a G9 chord. So again, we're not playing the root note, right? There's the root note, the 3rd fret on the thickest string, but we're not actually playing it. We're just playing here 2, 3, 2, and 3 at the top. Sorry, I had to think there for a second. Some of you might recognise that as being a B minor 7 flat 5 chord, which it is. But if the G is the root note, it becomes a G9. Also, there's some other stuff, variations on this that you might want to check out in my blues to jazz lesson. Some really cool little tricks you can do with this one. So anyway, that's a G9. It's a very cool little chord. Very common chord here as a substitute for a G7 here. G13. 3, nothing, 3, 4, 5. This is a G13 chord. Lovely chord. Very cool one to be playing around with. Okay, what else have we got here? Incidentally, you can also lay that little finger, lay the finger flat. Extend the chord up, you're just sticking the 9th on the top there by doing a little bar with your little finger. It's quite a nice variation. You've also got here now a little, this is a nice one, a G9th chord. That would be the full version. I suppose you could put all your fingers on if you wanted to. But most commonly you'd play it like this. Again, the root note is here, we're just not playing it. And we've got here 3, 4, 3, and 5 at the top. There, that's a G9. Now, I'm going to show you a couple of ones moving up the neck because this is quite fun. So, the next one we've got here will be a G7. There's the root note there at the 5th fret on the 4th string. We've got 5, 7, 6, 7. It's just a regular G7 chord. Now, if we slide a little finger up 1 fret, we end up with a G11. Very good fun to play about with that one. So we got there G7, little finger up, G11, and now we're up to some of the ones that I've talked about before in funk. Here, this is now a G9 chord. Now the trick with this one is making sure that your knuckle, this knuckle here, is quite far forward, like toward the camera here. First finger goes down and this finger here kind of reaches over the top of your 3rd finger. If you try and put it in the middle, it'll end up muting the 4th string, so try and kind of rest it on top of that finger. That's a G9, very cool little chord. And the common extension for that, put that little finger out there at the 12th fret and you get a G13. Great for funk and blues as well as jazz, but very nice little chord, that one. And another less common one, but I really like, I saw Robin Ford doing it first. This is a G13. Now the root note is here, but we're playing F as the lowest note. Doesn't matter, let the bass player play the note G. But this is actually a G13. This is 8, 7, 7, 8. You've of course got 7th chord like this as well, which is your kind of a C-shaped one. You probably recognise that as being a C7 from an open position, but if we move it up here and just play those middle 4 strings, we've got a G7. So we've already got quite a few now. We've got G7, G13, G9, which incidentally you can also play like this. If you remember before, we looked at a minor 9, which was that. So if you just push that first finger up, This is what I talk about learning how chords relate to each other. That's a dominant 9. That's a minor 9. And if we go back to dominant 9 and change the flat 7 into a 7, we end up with a major 9. That'll be G major 9, G 9, G minor 9. Very important that you learn to understand these relationships between the chords. It'll really help you remember them. Anyway, so distracted a little bit there. So we've got our 9th chord, 13th chord, another really nice one. This is another 7th chord, G7, 12, 12, 12, 13, root note on the 3rd string. So that's a cool one. And I'll just do a couple more up here. Now you very rarely play them up this high, but just because I picked the key of G to do it in. This is 15, 14, 12, 15. Root notes here at the 15th fret. And this is a 9th chord. Lovely because you can do to get a flat 9 in there later on as we learn how to use altered notes. And you can also move your first finger up a fret and you end up with an 11th chord, G11. So we've got a whole heap of different chords there now. Well, as you can see, we're developing quite a few different chords. As I've said before, make sure you just learn them one at a time, but a really good idea would be to make your own chord book. There's some chord paper on my website, so it might be a good idea if you maybe downloaded that and ended up making your own chord book with all of your major 7s, your major 7 type chords, your minor 7 type chords and your dominant 7 type chords, all there for you. That might be a pretty handy idea rather than buying one of those chord books with loads of chords that you can't play and that sound horrible anyway. So that would be really important. Also, I stressed a little bit in that last video about the relationships between chords and how important that is. So a really, really good idea would be to check out my chord construction guide. I know I'm trying to sell you stuff again, I'm sorry, but it's good, it works, you know, and it'll teach you the relationship between the different notes in every one of the 5 caged shapes and enable you to be able to transform one chord into another chord by just changing a note or two, which can be a really, really valuable exercise. So go and have a bit of a look-see at that. I hope you enjoyed that. Make sure you put these dominant 7th chords to good use, and I'll see you for another lesson very soon. Later, bye-bye.